Hey, welcome to Tomcat Scrubbers. Today we're going to be covering how to do a proper preventative maintenance visit on 3 of our walk-behind scrubbers. Now, the information that we're going to cover today will apply to the Sport, the Carbon, and the Hero. While the machines are different with gallon capacities and obviously battery sizes and configurations, the machine engineering is the same on all 3. So we're going to focus on the Carbon for our actual PM today, but please know that the functionality of the machines is the same across all 3 chassis. There's a couple of different ways that you can do a proper PM on our equipment. You might have your own documentation or way of doing it, but why not get the information from us, the people that made the machines? We have 2 different ways that you can get it. We have a printed copy, a PDF version that you can download. We also have an online interactive PM that's a multiple choice test. You can get to that information by going to our website, tomcatequip.com. You can also scan the QR code that's on the back of the machine, right about belt buckle height. It's got the serial number and it also has a QR code. It'll take you to a page and you can click on preventative maintenance. Or if you're a distributor, you can go to our secure online portal. You can enter the serial number under service, serial number lookup, enter the serial number there and it's going to take you to a page where you can find the PM. All right, so at the top of the PM sheet, you have customer information, dealer information, serial number. Go ahead and record hour meters. So we have a general key switch hour meter at the top, vacuum hour meter, scrub deck hour meter, and traction hour meter. We're going to check the operation of a few different features, and we're going to see if they're in spec, repaired, need repair, or if there's a problem with them. All right, let's start off with the key switch. Okay, this machine is equipped with the LCD display, the touch screen. All right, turn that on. Key switch work to turn it on. Okay, we'll go ahead and turn this the screen on, hit the check mark. The LCD display does seem to be functioning properly. Okay, this touch screen. All right, we're going to check that. It's working. Okay. Function wheel seems to work properly. Vacuum motor's turning on, back to transport. The proper functions are lighting up when I'm using them. All right, if I want to go to the maintenance screen, all right, different functions working here. All right. Make sure my different zones are registering. All right, looks like everything's functioning on the touchscreen correctly. Page button obviously works. Okay, we're gonna go back home. Both machines have their reverse toggle switch in the same spot. You wanna make sure that they're functioning properly and rebounding correctly when you let go of them. All right, you also have your propulsion buttons that are under each handlebar. You have one on the right and one on the left. You want to make sure that each one of them functions correctly and that the protective booty is still in place over the green button. All right, so checking functionality on the military grade panel. Key switch functions. You see your battery gauge loop up and then settle on its stated charge. All right, want to make sure vacuum motor switch works. Water, brush on. Okay, my brush pressure switch, my up and down for my actuator, that's working correctly. All right, so we also want to make sure that our brush pressure indicator is going to work. On both machines, we want to check our speed potentiometer and also our e-stop. When I hit this, everything should go dark. It did. Twist. Machine comes back to life, functioning properly. All right, if I wanted to actually run with this machine, lower the squeegee lever. Everything seems to be functioning properly. I'm going to increase the brush pressure. All right, everything seems to be functioning properly on this machine. It is important not just to look at parts that might be busted, worn, need replaced, and need grease when you're doing a PM. Do you know what a properly functioning scrubber should look like? Is it picking up water correctly? Is it putting out enough water? Is it scrubbing the floor the way that it should? Knowing what a new scrubber should operate as is very important to being a good mechanic and making sure that things are fixed correctly and PM'd correctly in the field. So now we're going to move into a cleaning and inspection point of our PM. It's next on the list. There's 16 things that we're going to check in this section. Your options listed on our PM sheet is that it can either be in spec, needs repair, or you noticed a problem. So item number 1 is we're going to drain and rinse our recovery tank. Lid flips up easily enough. Thankfully, this tank has already been rinsed. It's an easy job. The inside of the tank is smooth. Debris should fall off easily if done after each use. At this point, we also want to drain and flush our solution tank. So take that over to an appropriate reservoir, take it outside, and go ahead and drain your clean water.
In the front of your solution tank, you want to ensure your solution fill screen mesh is installed and free of debris. Also, while you're here, make sure to check your remote fill hose for cracks or leaks.
Now we're going to move to the solution filter, which is behind your right drive wheel. Located right here, it's your solution filter. Okay, righty tighty, lefty loosey, comes right off. We're going to spin this loose. You'll get a little bit of residual solution that comes out of it. 3 items of note when this comes out of the unit, okay? You've got the filter bowl. We want to clean this out. You have your filter screen. This is a fine stainless steel mesh. This is typically where any calcification and buildup from your soap and your hard water is going to exist. We want to rinse that out and clean it off thoroughly, but then also make sure if you did not have this O-ring come out when you remove these 2 items, likely it is still stuck on the machine. Make sure that it is seated correctly when you put these items back on, or you will have your solution filter assembly leaking onto your floor. So screen back in. All right, this is the blue vac muffler drain hose that is referenced in the PM sheet. You want to make sure that that is clear and not dirty. If so, it means that someone has ingested water into the vacuum motor and blown it out. And then this is your unloader valve. You want to inspect that, make sure that it's not dirty, make sure that it operates, it's not sealed shut.
The battery drain is under the machine. In case water gets into your battery tray, simply remove the white clamp and all fluids will spill out safely.
What's really cool about a Tomcat machine, they tip back. While the machine is tipped back, we are to another point where we're going to clean and lubricate some items. Remember, your options on this section are inspect, needs repair or repaired, or you see a problem. We're going to start with scrub deck linkage and pivots. Right, you have 4 pivot points. 1, 2, 3, 4 on each side of your scrub deck. All right, you want to inspect those, make sure that none of these bolts are broken, that you don't have any bends in your arms, no impact damage, and then obviously working the scrub deck later up and down that you're not hearing any creaking or you don't see any restrictions whatsoever.
You also want to ensure your actuator is lifting and lowering and that the deck is level with the ground.
All right, scrub motor wires. We want to inspect these, make sure there's no corrosion, that there's no abrasion, follow those all the way around. If you have a scrub deck that has skirts or wipers, like a cylindrical scrub deck or a disc scrub deck, this is the time while you're down here, you'd want to inspect those and see if they are torn or worn and need replaced. While we're talking about scrub decks, I'm going to try and cover every possible scenario that you could run into, whether it's pad drivers, cylindrical brushes, disc brushes, or an orbital scrub deck. In the case of your disc and cylindrical brushes, you want to measure your brush fiber length. We do have wear indicators on your cylindrical scrub brushes and also on our disc scrub brushes. All right, so obviously that's a quick little indicator to let you know, but you can also measure. You can enter the length, the fiber length. All right, cylindrical scrub decks, you want to either indicate if it's good or worn. Same thing with pad drivers, grip faces, disc scrub brushes. And if it's a cylindrical and a disc, indicate if you rotated the brushes or not. Cylindrical, you rotate the brush from front to back. Disc, you just swap sides. Something else to also check if you have a pad driver. Right, you want to make sure that these red fibers that hold your pad in place are not worn, aren't splayed out too far. And also your center retaining clip, make sure that it's not ground down, that they haven't been scrubbing with your retainer clip on the floor. Okay, go ahead and rotate that in, and it should be nice and concave holding the pad in. If the pad is dirty or worn, flip it over for them. All right, on your cylindrical scrub decks, you have a few more things that you need to go ahead and check out. So, slide your door off. You always want to check this male free spinning bearing. This is a common place where debris can get wrapped around or it can just get caked up with dirt and other items. Make sure that that's rinsed off, cleaned. This is when you would pull the brush out. If you wanted to rotate, okay, you can flip that over. You can swap from front to back. Inspect your belt while you're in here and make sure that tension's okay, that there's no fraying. And then you also would want to take a peek at the far end of your scrub deck and make sure that the other
motor is free of debris and is driving the brush without issue.
Obviously, before you put your brush back in, after you've rotated it, make sure before you do that you inspect it and make sure that there's no binding agents around it. There's no shrink wrap, there's no steel, plastic banding, or anything else wrapped around the fibers. Repeat on the other side. Let's start with some further inspection on your edge scrub deck. Since your edge scrub deck is just running one pad on it, you really need to take the time to inspect the grip face. Prickly part of the Velcro that holds the pad on. Okay, you want to make sure that you have good adherence all the way around and that the pad is not falling off anywhere. All right, you should have nice teeth all the way across. If you are performing a PM on a disc scrub deck, two things you want to check. You want to check and make sure that the male driver is not ground down and looks to be in good shape, and that there's nothing wrapped around it that needs to be cleaned off. And then you also want to check the female part of the brush and make sure that it is not getting wallowed out, worn down, or packed with any debris. Good thing to inspect before you reattach your scrub brush or your pad driver onto the machine. While we're in the back, go ahead and pull this hose right here. We're gonna take our squeegee off. We're gonna inspect that and flip the blades. All right, so we got the squeegee taken off. What we want to do is we want to inspect underneath, okay, make sure that the carriage is clean. Also, the hole that is going up from the center of the squeegee, make sure that that is free of obstruction. And then, even though this is a new machine, but we're going to go ahead and flop these blades, switch them around. Okay, we're going to rotate them. Hardware comes off easy enough. Inspecting your hardware is part of a PM, so this is the best way to do it, is to actually flip these blades over. Okay, so we're going to take off the rear blade, your most important blade, okay, and we will flip that and flip it over if it needs to be, if you've already used the other sides, or you can just flip it end to end. That's the back. Ditto the front. This little tiny pin. All right, so we've already flipped our squeegee blades. We've inspected our hardware on the back and the front of the squeegee tool. You also want to inspect your casters while you're back here. Okay, these are your height casters. It is common to see strings from your mop or from your dust mop or hair bound up in these caster wheels. Make sure that they're clean and free spinning. Also your squeegee wheels, okay? Make sure that they're free moving. Make sure that there's not any dings, gouges, that they're not bent, right? Or completely missing. All right, so when we were flipping the squeegee blades, we already talked about the importance of making sure that your casters are free of any debris and that they can spin around as they should. Ditto with your non-marking wheels on the outside of your squeegee. Okay, but then you've also got your pitch point here on your squeegee, and there's also a pivot up here in the middle. We call it the smile plate, okay? So you wanna make sure that these things are moving freely, right? That they're not bound up, that these bolts have not been over tightened by any personnel. You wanna make sure that these jam nuts are locked in place and that everything moves freely and you're not feeling any binding at all. Your vacuum hose comes off easily, okay? You want to keep the trap in the hose so that you don't get water belching back out onto the floor. Okay, keep that in place, make sure that there's no air leaks, make sure that the cuffs are in good shape and nothing is cut. If you see duct tape around here, time to replace.
Okay, recovery lid gasket.
Goes around here, crucial to the performance of the machine, especially for your vacuum motor, might be functioning, but if you've got a busted lid gasket, it's not gonna work well. So we're gonna inspect this for any cracks, any debris, we're gonna go ahead and clean it off. If you need to repair it, it's very simple, it's a press-on gasket. Easy to push back on a new replacement. We're gonna go ahead and, while we have the recovery tank lid open again, we're gonna inspect your white vacuum filter. This is a pre-filter. This is gonna filter out any foam, but also any dry particulates if you're vacuuming before your squeegee is actually wet. Okay, we got a clean filter. When you start to see a brown circle appear that's making it through the top, you wanna go ahead and throw this out and replace it with a new one. All right, at the same time, we're gonna inspect our ball float and screen. You got this retainer ring with a gasket. I'm gonna set that aside. Okay, ball float comes up from underneath. Right, so my ball's in good shape. If that was dirty, you'd want to clean it off. One of the things you'll find with your screen, why you want to inspect that, is you're going to get a bunch of lint things stuck to the screen. Eventually the ball can get stuck in the middle and it's not going to raise and lower the way that it should to cut the airflow off to your vacuum motor. All right, going to go ahead and replace this. Everything looks good. If it didn't, you would want to clean and replace. After we have inspected and cleaned that, we're going to move on to our drain saver basket. This is one of the hoses going into the tank, and this is something that we want to make sure is clear of any obstructions while we're at it. Drain saver basket, you should dump any contents that are in this drain saver basket into a garbage can, and we're going to go ahead and rinse this out thoroughly. So now that we have cleaned our drain saver basket and rinsed it, we're going to go ahead and reinstall it on our stainless steel baffle. Make sure that you put the incoming dirty water hose back into the drain saver basket. We also want to inspect our drain hose and plug. Want to make sure that nothing is leaking, that there's no cuts, and that the plug, or the cap, works correctly and is still attached to the machine. You also notice that there is a spot to hang it on the cap itself. While we're in the back of the machine, okay, we want to check the rest of our hoses as well, make sure that our sight gauge looks clear. Sometimes if people leave water sitting in this, you can see a lot of mold buildup in it. And also your solution feed hoses on each side of the tank, I'm checking those and making sure there's no obstructions or any visible debris. You got one on the right rear and another on the left rear. Okay, we're done in the recovery tank for now, so I'm gonna go ahead and shut my lid and reseal it. Time to inspect our drive wheels. Looking at those, I'm looking for big chunks out of the tread. I'm looking for objects that might be stuck in the tread that'll damage the floor and impede the machine's proper working functions. One looks good. Let me duplicate my efforts on the left side. All right, and then your casters. You have two of them, both in the rear behind your drive wheels. All right, you want to inspect both casters on the rear of the machine. Make sure that they're not bound up around here with hair, mop string, etc. And also go ahead and grease both of them. You can see the fitting right here. If the unit is equipped with our 03 onboard aqueous ozone system, this is your filter. Perfect example of what a filter looks like when it is done, cashed out, and needs to be traded in and recycled. When this air dryer material is all brown, pull the surgical tubing off, replace with a new one. Okay, so your suds reservoir, okay, this is on a carbon. You would want to make sure that that is drained. There is a drain on the lower right-hand side of the machine. On this green tube, there's a valve on the back side that you can open up and you can drain the soap contents. You want to rinse that out for at least 10 minutes. And then you need to fill that up with some white vinegar and go ahead and run that through so that you can descale the pump. That should be done quarterly. Charger you have on the machine might depend. Could be onboard, could be a remote charger. If it's a remote charger, you want to plug the unit in before you leave and make sure that the charger is functioning correctly. You also want to pay particular attention to where it plugs into the machine. Make sure that there's no signs of arcing, there's no black spots, the plastic hasn't been melted, nothing is chipped, cracked, or in disrepair. If it's an onboard charger, right, you also want to plug that in as well, make sure that it's functioning properly. Easy access to your batteries. Just release two hood latches, tilt the entire tank assembly back, make sure that you remove your operator manual from the battery compartment if you still have it stored there. Now we're going to cover how to properly maintain and inspect batteries. Couple of things, couple of safety items that you want to take into consideration. No jewelry, no wedding rings, no watches, no dangling necklaces, no Mr. T starter kits. Right, you want to put on a pair of chemical resistant nitrile gloves. You want to have eye protection as well. Let's start checking these wet batteries. Battery maintenance and inspection. All right, so if you have AGM batteries or lithium batteries, this isn't going to apply, but what we're going to do now is inspect a set of Trojan lead acid or wet batteries as they're referred to. Okay, first thing I want to look at whenever I'm checking out a battery compartment is I want to make sure that my terminals are covered. I want to inspect each terminal, make sure that they're still clean, that they don't have a bunch of corrosion. If they do have corrosion, make sure that you clean them off properly and then treat the terminals. And I also want to inspect the cables themselves and make sure that they are not corroded and that I don't see any embolisms in them. No large spots. If there's any large spots in these cables, discontinue the use of the machine and replace the cables immediately. Now that that's been taken care of, all right, it's a new machine, so the terminals look nice, as you would expect.
Torque battery nuts 11 foot-pounds when changing cables.
We're gonna go ahead and pop a cap. Right, so one of the things that we do on our PM sheets is that we have every single battery labeled. We know what battery is number 1, number 2, 3, and 4. The importance of that is if you find out one battery is bad, you know which one to replace, or if another technician is coming out instead of you to replace the battery, they know what battery to replace. So, no matter what machine we're working on, based on our diagram, this is battery number 3, battery number 2, 1, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? So we're gonna inspect one of these batteries and show you how it's done. You can just extrapolate that out to the rest of them. Using a hydrometer, right, we're going to inspect
Cell C. This is cell B and cell A.
Okay, we're gonna pump in some electrolyte, okay? And we're going to look at what the specific gravity reading is on this cell. Other thing that we want to inspect is we want to look at the clarity of the electrolyte that's coming out and also the level inside the cell itself. But we want to note on here, and it's on your PM sheet, what the reading is, the specific gravity of this cell, the clarity of the electrolyte, whether it's clear, dark, or cloudy. And then we also want to measure the level of electrolyte in the cell itself. Okay, once you're done, send that back into the cell.
Then we are going to repeat these steps on cell B and cell A.
And then we're going to move to the other 3 batteries. All right, so we can see the finish line in sight. The machine's full of water now. We're just going to check the operation of the scrubber. This is vitally important to a PM. Every single mechanic should know, technician should know, what a properly functioning scrubber looks like. It's not just about putting water down and the vacuum motor's on. Are you smearing water? Are you picking it up correctly? Is the machine scrubbing the way that it should? Right, this is where we check the performance of the machine. We're going to make sure that the brush switch or your display is putting the brush down correctly. Right, so on this LCD, this touchscreen display, we hit one button, right, scrub, water, vacuum. I'm going to lower my squeegee lever, make sure that it works. My potentiometer for speed, I'm going to be checking that. All the functions of the machine are going to get checked at the same time. While I'm doing this, I'm also looking at squeegee pitch and squeegee height. We have a separate video for squeegees. If you want to know how to adjust pitch and height, all you have to do is go ahead and click on this link. But I want to make sure that I have a good bend to my blades that is even across the squeegee from left to right. So I'm looking at the pitch and also the height at the same time to make sure that I'm making a clean, dry exit after my scrubber's gone through an area. So now that we've checked all the functions on the machine, we've checked the brush switch, make sure that water's coming out, your squeegee lever works correctly, your vacuum motor's turning on and off when it should. All of those have been checked. Your vac performance is up to snuff. There might be additional options on the machine. Maybe there's an off-file wand, maybe there's a spray jet. You want to check those also. And last but not least, there's a section on our PM sheet for comments. Maybe you found that the machine was dirty, covered with tools, hasn't been used, whatever comments, you have a free response section. Make sure that you sign off, get your customer's initials, date it, and your PM's complete. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video as much as we have making it. Thank you for buying American. Thank you for buying a Tomcat.